Okay, so we are going to make our pillowcase now. And remember I said that there is a French seam involved in this pillowcase, so we're going to learn that technique first. Remember, this is a plain seam, so it's just two sides of fabric stitched together, 5/8 inch seam allowance. What we're going to do though for a French seam is we're actually going to start with the wrong sides together. So this side is the not as pretty, not as bright side, and we are going to line up our edges. I'm going to put a couple pins in just to keep them from shifting. Okay, so it's a 1/4 inch total. First it's a 1/4 inch and then it's a 1/2 inch. So on my machine, the 1/4 inch is actually the edge of my presser foot. So I'm going to stitch using the edge of my presser foot in line with the edge of my fabric. Once again, I want to have about 1/2 of a presser foot on my fabric before I start, and then I see my threads not under my presser foot, so I'm going to tuck that under. Okay. So I'm going to go forward a few stitches and then I'm going to reverse just to secure my seam here. Okay. Then I'm going to take one step off the edge and reverse again just to secure this end. Okay. So I have a 1/4 inch seam allowance made. Trim my tails here. And that is a 1/4 inch. So now instead of pressing our seam allowance open like we did on the plain seam, so instead of opening this and flattening these two pieces like this, like we did with the plain seam, we are actually going to leave those together and we're going to trim them about 1/8 of an inch. So about like this, next to the stitching line. Nice and straight. And then what we're going to do is we are going to iron closed first, and then we're going to open one side and fold it so that you see the wrong side of the fabric. And then we're just going to run our finger along right here along the seam so that our seam allowance is actually just to one side. We're not trying to flatten it open. So you can kind of feel this fold shouldn't have any thickness underneath it because your seam allowance is all under this side. And then we're going to press it. Okay, so far that's what it looks like. Your seam allowance is pressed to one side and you've got wrong sides stitched together. Now we're going to fold it this direction so that our seam becomes our crease. And then we're going to press it again. So you don't want one side of your seam to be longer than the other. That's what it should look like. And then the inside on the right side, you should see the raw edges of the fabric. So now we're going to stitch next to this raw edge so that you don't have a raw edge on the right side or on the wrong side. Now we're going to stitch our seam again with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So that means the fold that we just created is going to be the edge of our fabric, and that's the edge of our presser foot. So you can sort of feel in here, and my needle is going to be about right here, and the edge of my raw fabric, the raw edge is right here. So we're going to encase that raw edge, and that's what makes a French seam. Still, we're going to reverse just at the beginning and the end like we did before. Keep the edge of your fabric on the edge of your presser foot. And that's what it should look like when you're done. So you don't have any raw edge of the fabric showing, and your right sides are together now. And there's no raw edges on the back side either, on the wrong side. So now we're going to press this. And when you are making something with a French seam, you have to, since you can't press your seam open like you do on a plain seam, you just have to pick a direction and stick with it and press yours off to the side.